Or people will say, carbs are bad for you and they cause you to gain fat. And then when you account for lifestyle factors, and when you look at people who want to build muscle, those who eat more carbs tend to build muscle than those who eat less, when they're actually gaining weight. So using the evidence is several things. It's, yes, scientific studies, right? There are some great nutritional science studies.
Awekenge, this is Mental Mythos, hosted by Toto.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Mental Mythos. I'm your host, Toto. And before we dive into today's incredible conversation, I have a small favor to ask. If you enjoy what you hear today, please take a moment to rate and review our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Your feedback not only helps us improve, but also helps others discover the valuable insights we share every week. And if you find today's episode particularly inspiring or insightful, don't forget to share it with your friends, family, or anyone you think could benefit from it. Thank you for your support. It truly means the world to us. Now, let's get back into our conversation.
I just want to say thank you so much for being here, and also to have a conversation that we're about to have, which is that revolves around nutrition, weight loss, and fitness. And I believe all those things are actually affect mental health in a positive way, whereas in a way of trying to better yourself. So with those words, I would like to say thank you so much for being here, and also welcome to Mental Mythos. Really appreciate you for being here.
Thank you, Asego, for having me here.
And in terms of, I keep on actually implying this in a way of, it's my first time this year of realizing that mental health has a interlink with nutrition, and it's something that I didn't know in a way of the benefit it has, all the things that it has. So, and my first question towards you, in terms of, it really revolves around mental and physical transformation. As someone that has had a significant transformation, both mentally and physically, can you talk about the mental hurdles you had to overcome to get where you are today?
Yeah, for sure. So for most of my life, I was not very happy with my physique, with how I looked, with how I performed. I didn't grow up as an athlete, right? I was always kind of the guy behind a computer as a kid. I had a desk job. And throughout my 20s and 30s, I tried going to the gym. I tried all the different diets, Atkins and keto, carnivore, low carb, all of that. And the whole time, those things, none of them worked effectively for me. They would work for a short time. I might lose some weight. I might make a little bit of progress in the gym. I did CrossFit for like 8 years, and it never quite got me what I wanted. So for those listening who are used to working hard and being consistent and still not getting the results when it comes to your health and fitness, you probably relate to what I went through. Now, I've never struggled with what I'll call mental illness or anxiety or depression or anything like that. For me, the struggle was more that I am a very positive, optimistic person who works really hard and yet still couldn't get what I wanted. And that was very frustrating. And I could imagine for people who do struggle with mental health to some extent, or don't necessarily have that positive outlook, or who have negative self-talk, limiting beliefs, all of that, it just makes it that much worse when you don't get the result you're looking for from your actions. So about 5 years ago, I started to discover strength training, building muscle, and flexible nutrition. Right? We can talk about those different pillars. And when I started to do that, and I started to actually get a physical transformation, I started to get stronger. My deadlift went up. I got some, defined shoulders. I could actually eat the foods that I wanted, and I could eat carbs again, and I could enjoy going out to eat on the weekends. Those aspects of living your life the way you want and getting the results, I think contribute toward, positive mental health for anyone.
And you spoke about self-talk, that it actually had an influence in terms of your transformation, and something I believe that either you lift weights or not, self-talk actually has a big effect on some or on people. How did, in terms of, in a way of negatively talking about how, actually, let me rephrase that. How powerful is self-talk when it comes to the field that you're in terms of talking about weight loss, talking about mental health, talking about nutrition, talking about fitness?
I think I could argue that it's the most powerful thing, because when you say that I can't do something or this is who I am, it's a fixed mindset, right? It doesn't allow for change. It doesn't allow for growth and expansion of who you are. And really, physical fitness, mental health, all of it is a process of personal growth and change. And if you are telling yourself, no, I'm not an athlete, no, I can't, get the body I want, my family is just destined to be obese or have diabetes, you're setting yourself up to do those things because you don't think you can change. So I think it's everything. And I think the flip to that, Aseko, right, is, hey, yes, I'm an athlete. I'm the type of person who trains 3 days a week. I'm the type of person who eats my protein. I'm the type of person who calls my friend for support. All of the little things that add up to our physical and mental health that open up change and growth.
And you spoke about obesity, and it's something that it's quite in conversation that I feel like people are afraid to talk about, and not in a sense of in terms of going to gym, in a sense of realizing that it's on the rise. And apparently, a study that I read, it was an article that entails that obesity, it is shown that it is the result of mental health issues nowadays. And it's quite difficult. I feel like it's quite difficult for people to actually get into that mindset of going to the gym. The reason I'm bringing it up, I came across a video online, and whereas it was a conversation between the guys that went to the gym and the obese guys, and it seemed like sometimes we think that it's quite easy to lose weight. It's quite easy to actually get rid of those habits in terms of when you have stress, when you have these mental health problems, when you face with grief, when you have these problems. And some people were actually had adopted into emotional eating, and in terms of eating, and they end up having this body weight, and it's difficult for them to actually lose it, because in a way, it's tough. Secondly, it's something that sometimes they have they are being discouraged by other people in a way of you are too fat, things like that. And also, thirdly, in terms of the thing they spoke about, the self-talk that you tell ourselves, that usually when one has an addiction, when it comes to food, there's this thing there's inner voice that says to upon them that you're not worth it, the thing that you're trying won't work out, things like that. And I feel like it's some of the things that we don't even consider when we actually come across people that have that are obese, and we imply that it was a choice that they actually in a way eat themselves into become this obese person. And I spoke about, actually you spoke about nutrition, and also spoke about nutrition. And as I mentioned earlier, that nutrition is something that is new to me. It's something that it's my first time hearing about it, and how it's really important. And one thing that I kept on seeing on Podmatch when I actually was looking for guests in terms of nutrition, I kept on getting across this word, evidence-based nutrition. So firstly, I just want to ask you that, what is meant by that? Secondly, how has your approach to evidence-based nutrition impacted your mental health?
Yeah, good. You just gave me a lot there. I do want to address the obesity thing a little bit as well, but maybe I'll tie it into the evidence-based side. So evidence-based simply means using the whole hierarchy of evidence to support the actions that we take to get the result that we want, right? So for example, people will say you just need to eat less and move more and you're going to lose weight. And what we find is that the evidence says if you move too much, your body will adapt, will reduce its metabolism, you'll burn fewer calories, right? You'll have more stress on your body, and then you actually make it harder to lose weight. Or people will say, carbs are bad for you and they cause you to gain fat. And then when you account for lifestyle factors, and when you look at people who want to build muscle, those who eat more carbs tend to build muscle than those who eat less, when they're actually gaining weight. So using the evidence is several things. It's yes, scientific studies, right? There are some great nutritional science studies that have looked at multiple populations, multiple observational studies, multiple randomized controlled trials over years or decades where there's a pretty clear consensus on certain things that you could almost call them facts. Like we know that eating around 0.7 to 1 gram per pound of protein is optimal for almost anybody who wants to maintain their muscle mass, right? Like we kind of know that. You can't argue with it. It's very well supported. But there are a lot of other things that are subjective. So you can't just rely on the science. The next piece of evidence we have is coaches and anecdotes and stories of lots and lots of people, right? Like people in the fitness industry, people who get coached for their personal training or for their nutrition. And then we have the best evidence of all, Aseko, which is ourselves. Like we are the best evidence, because all you've got to do is try something, collect the data, see if it worked. If it didn't, change it. What most people don't do is they don't track and measure the things that count. They don't track their food. They don't track their lifts. They don't track scale weight, body measurements, biofeedback, like their hunger. They don't track these things because maybe it's too hard. Maybe they don't know to track them. Maybe they don't know what to track. But once you can track the right data, now you can rapidly prototype your own body and get to the true evidence of what works and what doesn't.
That's a quite informative answer. And again, as you mentioned, that in terms of that biofeedback, sometimes we don't actually think that it will actually work for us. In a way, we think that it is in a way of we will be biased in terms of that. Most of the time, as when we try things, when we actually end up saying that, okay, if I do this and when I look for the feedback, I would actually be biased in terms of this. And whereas we ended up, since we don't trust ourselves, we try by means to look outside of ourselves in terms of the person next to us. And sometimes those certain people are not honest with us. They, in a way of seeing that themselves are not improving, in a way of building themselves up, in terms of taking care of themselves. Sometimes they will tend to lie in terms of, how can I put this, in terms of saying, no, this thing is not working clearly. And clearly you have that lack of self-confidence of telling yourself that, okay, of being honest with ourselves. One of the things that are quite hard is being honest with ourselves, of not being honest with ourselves, realizing that sometimes you just need yourself, and that outside external validation doesn't work. And if you keep on doing that, you will always believe what other people say. And another thing that I feel like I need to add to what you've said is calories. Sometimes, and I don't quite remember which episode that I spoke about calories, whereas people consume a lot of calories, but at the same time, within those calories, there are not enough rich nutrient food. Like, it's something that I've realized, and also, as I will keep on saying this, in terms of my first time talking about the conversation around nutrition. And at some point in my life, I always thought that I'm eating everything. And if you are allergic to something, you are weak in a way. And I believe that it's something that we are taught, something that we are not we are not being told aware of. What are some in terms of diets that you quite mentioned keto, the diet? What kinds are other diet that actually work in terms of, as you said, that you spoke about in a way of trying new things?